Yes. So as I was saying, I want this to be relevant to you. I want this time we spend together to be something that you actually put into your like mental computer for the life you're living, like right now, and will be in the future, because that's how it works. All right. I want to start with a few ideas. First, what I'm going to do is what I call an idea fashion show. It's not really a lecture, although it might feel that way or whatever, but I'm going to run some ideas down the runway and you're going to decide if they look good on you or not. All right. So that means you're free to accept, reject, or adapt anything I say. All right. So let the idea fashion show begin. Also, I want to say this too, okay? Because I know like I'm over here talking and you're listening over there, but I don't know if you can believe this, but where you are now, I once was. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean by that? Not literally, but do you get it? Where you are now, I once was. What do I mean by that? Let's just hear from like one or two people. I'd love to, yeah. What do I mean by that? I can steer you down. I practice this.
Yeah, so I guess I think you're trying to say like maybe you were once a college student, just younger, going through the same problems that we are, trying to navigate life and kind of figure out the uncertainties that we're all facing at the same time.
Honestly, like that nails it. I mean, I asked for one or two, so if somebody else wants to add on to that, but I mean, Thomas, that is like so much of what I meant. But anybody else want to add to that too? All right, now here's part two. All right, that's part one. Part two is where I am, you one day will be. Do you believe that one? You're going to be further down the road. You know, like you're not going to be where I am. I mean, I hope, you know, for a lot of you. But I mean, you're going to be further into the future from where you are now, from your current present day concerns and the navigating life. That's so perfect. Everything, actually, everything I'm going to talk about is about that. It is about navigating life. It is for the purpose of navigating life, which you are doing from where you are right now, going forward. So that's what I want to talk about. And I also want to preface all this by talking about this idea between progression and perfection. That I don't know if you've heard of the psychologist Carl Jung, J-U-N-G, Carl Gustav Jung. And he recognized that many of his patients who came to see him were there because of neuroses that were born from perfectionism, that life had to be a certain way. And that if it wasn't, you might either be anxious or you might be depressed. Right. And so what he would say is to his patients, he would say, don't even worry about perfection until you're complete. There's no such thing as perfection without completion. Right. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's like good. Right. I'm not necessarily a perfectionist. Like if you look at my life, you would go, oh, wow, he's a real perfectionist. But we all are in a way. We all have something in our head that we aspire to for the way things should be. And that's how I define perfection. Perfection is what is in your head for how things should be. Does that make sense? So then we're all perfectionists in a way. We all have a thing. How should it be? How should this relationship be? How should I be treated? How should my career go? You know, yeah, we all have that. And then when it happens that way, we feel good. And when it happens opposite of that, we feel bad. You know, a lot of our emotions can be explained this way. We'll come back to that. So we're trying to navigate forward from where we are now, but we don't really have all the navigation tools. There's a quote I like. It says, life gives you the test first and the answers later. Well, that's not really convenient. So what I want to do is I want to kind of give you some answers now. I want to be like a cheat code for y'all. You know, I want to say, like, what do I know you all want? I know, think about whatever it is you care about. I know what you want for that thing. For that thing you care about, you want it to be healthy. You want it to grow in a positive way. You want it to prosper. You want it to thrive. And that could be your bank account. It could be your automobile. It could be a relationship. It could be your health. It could be your grades, your career, your household. For anything you care about, we know what we want for it. We want it to thrive. So that's what this is going to be about. It's going to be how to move there, not from perfectionism and even not from completion, because sometimes you can't complete everything either. And sometimes life won't be complete. But I think there's something even before completion. We can make progress. In order to complete anything, you have to make the necessary progress. So don't focus on perfection. Don't focus on completion. Let's focus on progression. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. So progression theory, it encompasses these three main concepts. Thriving is the ultimate aim, what we're going for. We progress toward thriving. We do that by aligning, and we align things by properly engaging. And I'm going to talk about each one of those. But for a minute, I want to back up and say one thing that that I want to describe the way I talk. What I'm going to present to you is are a series of ideas that I won't call advanced, because you're going to all be able to understand them. They're not going to be like, oh, wow, that's out there. Oh, I got to really work to think about it. In fact, they're going to be the opposite direction of advanced. They're going to be basic. But the thing is, they're not going to be obvious. So I'm going to present it. It's going to be basic. You're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. And you go like, yeah, no one's really pointed that out before, but it matters. So I'm going to give you an example of that. By the way, I call this Bibno. What I'm going to show you is an example of something that's basic, B-B-N-O, Bibno. It's basic, but not obvious. So the idea that I want to share, an example of Bibno, is continuation. So how did you get to where you are right now? Basically, whatever preceded it is what led to it. Wherever you are right now, it was the result of the circumstances that immediately preceded it. Does that make sense? And then before that, where were you? And how did you get there? Well, you got there from the circumstances that immediately preceded that. And how did you get there? And how did you get there? And you can keep going back, and you realize that your whole life has been a series of continuation. Once you started, it just continued. And so this idea of continuation is pretty basic, but we don't really think about it. It's not obvious until I point it out. But this is really important, because I think continuation may be one of the most powerful forces in the universe. I can't think of anything that can overcome it or resist it. And I also know that just as your life has continued up until this point, it's going to continue going forward. That right now, what's going on is going to lead to the next thing. And that's going to lead to the next thing. We don't know what those things are yet, because that's kind of how time works. That's life giving you the test now, but it's going to give you the lesson later, right? Yeah. But this idea of continuation, if you harness it the right way, you could use it to build the future you want. I'm going to stop there for a minute and see if that made sense, because that should have been a mic drop moment. See, you could harness this thing that's already played out that led you to where you are today. And you could harness it to guide. You can't control it, but you could guide where you want to go forward. And if you harness continuation going forward, then my word for that is progression. You're harnessing this principle, this law, this thing that just happens, And you can almost predict where a relationship's going to go from where it started. You can almost predict where a career is going to go from where it started. Not always, right? But largely because continuation is the force that is driving everything. But if you harness it now, you could ride it like a surfer, you know, riding a wave. You could harness this continuation in your favor. And that's toward your happiness, toward your well-being. That's the connection to this class. So let me pause there. Let me just see. That's my opening salvo. That's what we're doing. Does that make sense? Does it interest you, Dr. Van Sage? Does it fit with what we were talking about? We were talking about today.
Yeah, no, it does. This whole idea of continuation is fascinating to me, and I don't know that you and I have actually talked about that. So I'm intrigued.
Nice. Yeah. Because this is built on the whole idea. It's lovely. You don't even have to do it. Continuation is this force. It's a force that now that you're like, oh, right, it's there. Oh, okay, cool. What do I do with it? That's what we're going to talk about. All right. So there's a lot of words we talk about: well-being, happiness, and so forth. And so I want to tell you, I've been interested in this field for a long time, this field of positive psychology. I've been interested and influenced by this man named Martin Seligman, and inspired by Viktor Frankl's life message and story. So, I mean, all of those things are in me as well, and part of what I'm going to talk about. But I don't use my word for using this, for talking about this, is thriving, and I want to tell you why. You know the word happy. You know the word what other words begin with hap? Happen or happenstance, haphazard, and there's others, but they all kind of connote this idea of luck or randomness or fortune, good fortune. Because if things turn out the way you want them to, you should feel happy. Oh, wow, I wanted this and now I got this. I'm lucky, I'm happy, I feel good, right? And so I am a fan of happiness. I'm just not a fan of it as a strategy. Like, I want happiness whenever it comes my way, but happiness is a little fickle. So the word thriving, and this is what I do, I look into the word origins. This is very important to me, because when we look at the word thriving, you know, that's what's of interest to me. Thriving, I'll go back here because this is my core model. I'll keep coming back to this. So thriving, the etymology for that, if you can you see that? Is that big enough? Let's see, let's just do this. Doink, doink. All right, now we got it bigger. All right, so thrive, it means to grow, develop well, or develop vigorously. So think about the things you care about. What do you care about? You care about yourself. You care about all those things I listed earlier. What do you want? You want them to grow, develop. You want them to flourish. Oh, wow. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a book by that name? Right? That's another way of talking about thriving. Now, what I love is the word origin. It comes from the Norse, the Vikings. Thrifa comes from thrive, grow, increase, comes from thrifa, to grasp, or to get hold of, or to seize for oneself. See how this is different from happiness? And so that's kind of like what I like. I like it because I have more control, a little more say, a little more, oh, I could seize it. I got to go for it. But it's not just go for it. That advice, just do it, is kind of just dumb. It's only half the equation. Do what and why? And we're going to get into that. But the idea that I'm going for you all is that you could progress toward thriving. It's not immediate. It's not overnight. This isn't a miracle cure or whatever. This is a way of seeing the world and seeing life. And I want you to try on this lens for this little bit of time we have together. So it's a thriving mindset. All right. Now, what is thriving and how do we thrive and what does that mean? Well, thriving is a relationship between two things. It's a relationship between a purpose and the outcomes. So the purpose is the why you're doing something, and the outcomes are the results. Now, what happens when the results don't match the purpose, do you thrive? Are you thriving? No, you're not. You're not. Your outcomes are falling short of the intended purpose. So that's why someone could have really good outcomes. Someone could be rich and beautiful and popular and miserable. Do you believe me? Just watch the Kardashians. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I shouldn't make pop culture references. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm too old. So, but no, look at America. Oh, you will, by the way. I think you're going to be looking at happiness statistics across the globe, where we are the richest, most popularist country in the world. Not the most, you know what I mean, but we think we're all that. And you might be surprised at where we rank on the happiness scale. Not to steal any thunder, but I'm doing Viking stuff, so yeah, I can steal thunder. Thrive. It's within our power to do that. So it's within our power to get clear on our purpose. And then once we're clear on our purpose, we can decide on what the outcomes will look like. So you all are towards the tail end of your college career, is that right? Yeah. So when you started college, you had a why. You had a purpose. And you probably, maybe you didn't, you might not have written it all out in detail, but did you have in mind the outcomes you wanted from your college experience? To varying degrees, depending on, all right. Now, the degree to which those outcomes match your purpose might indicate how well you're thriving. You can look at other ways. You could look at a garden and you can say, what is my purpose for growing the garden and what outcomes do I want? And if your vegetables are all eaten up, then did your garden thrive? No, right? But if your vegetables flourished, or maybe it wasn't vegetables, maybe it was a flower garden, the flowers grew and bloomed beautifully, it thrived. Purpose matched the outcomes. Does that make sense? So that to me is what, like, if you're happy, then it's because some outcome is matching something that's important to you. And if you're upset, it's because the outcome is not living up to the outcome, the purpose that you had in mind. Any reaction to that? I'd love to hear what's going on and how that resonates for you, because I've never heard myself say these things. I only say them. Is it making sense? Is it weird? Is it, where are you at?
I think it makes perfect sense. Everyone in this class is probably annoyed with me talking about it, but like, we do have this idea of what's going to happen, and then when it doesn't, we feel like we're not like progressing or it's not perfect. But from experience, like, some things are meant to change, and it's how you like adapt to that and stuff like that.
Yes. And what I want to say to that, to anyone, is don't stop. Don't stop, progress. Some doors don't open for you. That's okay. You can keep knocking, or find what I call, here's how I define it. I'm going to tell you for real. I use the word thrive, but Caroline, I say it like this, and everybody else too, you can listen in too. It's individual environment fit. You're the individual. You're the unique individual. Nobody can tell you what environment will work for you. You know what I mean? Loved ones will try. They will. You know what I mean? They might annoy you in the process, but don't forget they love you. And they love you. They're invested in your well-being more than anybody else. Just a little, plug for the parents. So, but only you can find that fit, and only you know the individual. Inside of you is an individual experience. It's unique, and no one else knows what it is. It can feel lonely because it is, because it's your own unique inner experience. For doing what? For navigating the environment. And some environments will be a good fit for you. They align with you. That's the next piece. So let's just get into that. So in order to thrive, what we're looking for is alignment. Alignment between our purpose and our outcomes. Alignment between me as an individual and the environments I navigate. As a wise man once said, it's about navigating life. Right, Thomas? So in order to get to thriving, we need to align. What we need to do is we need to align, and I'll tell you what we need to align in a minute. There's a lot of things, but I'll just tell you now. Generally, what we want to align is this. So if you know, let's say we're talking about garden or whatever you want to put in place of it, your relationship, your car, your whatever, whatever, your bank account, your garden in this case, whatever thriving looks like, we have to ask a question. What factors, once I know what thriving looks like for my career, for my classes, for whatever, I need to ask the question, what are the factors that are necessary for the thriving to result? So if the garden is the vivacious garden is the outcome I want, what are some of the factors that are necessary to have that? I'll name them. You can think, if I don't, you can do it with me. Water, you need water, right? You need sunlight. You need the right soil conditions. You probably need the right temperature. So let's say you get all that going. And you got all of them at the right place. You got the right amount of water, the right amount of sun, and all that. Your garden should be in pretty good shape overall, unless you forgot a factor, unless you forgot the bunny rabbits that'll eat away at it or something like that. You didn't manage the pests. There's a reason if you're not thriving that there's ingredients that we're missing. That's all. And we need to find out what those factors or ingredients are. Okay, that's why we get the results we get. Either we had the conditions or factors necessary or something was missing. And that's all, because that's actually very useful, because we can solve things, we can improve things, we can always make progress. See, that's the problem with perfection. It's never possible. But the great thing about progress is the opposite. What do I mean by that? Progress is always possible. It's always possible. There's always something you could do to make something a little bit better. You can't get to perfection right away. You never could. That's all fantasy. That's all stuff that people share their best lives on social media, but they don't tell you all their flops, all their disappointments, and all of that, So progression is the only game in town. Perfection was never even an option. And I think that's empowering. It might be disappointing to some people, but I hope it isn't. I hope it's empowering. Progression is something you always can do. And what you do is you figure out what thriving would look like, and you consider what are the factors necessary to get that thriving, and you get them into alignment. What do I mean by that? Well, if for your garden, you needed a 0 out of 10, you needed 9 on sunlight, or 8 on sunlight, 8 out of 10, and you only have 3 out of 10, then you need to find ways to dial from a 3 toward an 8 on the sunlight. And if the reason your garden failed is because you didn't have the right soil, then, you work on the soil conditions. That's all, right? And then maybe you'll decide that this garden isn't really what you wanted anyway. It wasn't the right fit for you, and you might dig it up and it might become a swing set, a place for your swing set or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, I don't have much of a backyard going on. But you get my point that what we can do with this, I'm telling you, there's a lot of within your control, within your ability. All right, I'm excited about this. So I'm getting a little far ahead of myself. So let me talk about thriving for a minute. See, this is a model that I created just to kind of simplify things. That basically everything that exists in this universe has a beginning and it has an ending. I know sometimes we have to get way out into, astrological time and geological time and all of that, and astrological distance, but everything, the sun will end, Earth will end, right? So I don't worry about what happened before the beginning or what happens after the ending. I'm not going to talk to you about that. I think that's beyond me. It's beyond anybody, but I'm going to just be intellectually honest and say it's beyond me. All right. But I do know about the between. I can tell you something about the between. There's two main states, and only two. I know this sounds weird, but it's like, think about it. There, between birth and death, between beginning and ending, for a relationship, for a business, for a career, for a life, it could be in the state of survival or thriving. And you can see there's many degrees of survival. And once you fall, but if you fall below a certain threshold of survival, you kind of, move over here. But also look at all the levels of thriving. And I want to say that you haven't reached your highest levels of thriving yet because you didn't know progression theory. No, just kidding. But I just think that, no, but I'm joking, but I'm kind of not. I think we can look for ways for you to fine tune things, for you to move more in the direction toward thriving. And that's the key. We don't have to be at thriving. We just need to move toward thriving. I'll show you what I mean. See, it's this idea of alignment versus contrast. So I talked to you about alignment, and I'll define it for you. Alignment is the state in which two or more things are optimally organized. Let me just read what it says. The state in which all related elements function optimally and the outcomes move toward thriving. So let's say in a relationship, you have alignment in a relationship when you and the other person are optimal. You're at your best, they're at their best, and your relationship's at its best. Does that make sense? And when that's not happening, then something's out of alignment. Doesn't mean it's broken or the game over or anything like that. So, but when we're too far on the other side, we move into the realm of contrast, and that's the state in which two or more related elements function suboptimally, and the outcomes move away from thriving. Right? But this happens. We cannot avoid contrast. Contrast is a natural function of things interacting. Just you doing your thing, them doing their thing, and oh, you got in an accident. Oops. You got cross with somebody. You have different values or different ways you think things should be done. What happens when we experience contrast? How do you feel when you experience this contrast? You don't feel good feelings. In fact, I kind of have it here. When we experience contrast, we experience negative emotions. When we experience alignment, we experience positive emotions. That's really what your emotions are. Your emotions, whenever you feel them, is your internal interpretation of if something aligns with you or contrasts with you. If you feel any of the positive emotions, there's a researcher named Barbara Fredrickson, a positive psychology researcher, and she identified the 10 most common positive emotions: joy, serenity, things like that. When you experience contrast, you experience negative emotions. That's what happens. And everything in your environment will fall somewhere between 0 and 100 on the alignment meter. There's some things you love. I don't know why I said it like that. And there's some things you despise. That's just terrible. And for other people, they may love what contrasts with you might align with them. And so you're going to be misaligned with them. You're going to fight. You're going to argue. Yeah. That's why. See, I'm explaining all these things. Because when your emotions are positive, then your engagement is positive. We're going to talk about engagement next. When your emotions are negative, then you're negatively engaged. When you're negatively engaged, your velocity is low, your output's low, your energy is low. You don't, the work you do is low. But when your engagement's high, your velocity is good. And people are going to like you. They're going to like being around you. You're going to like being around them. It's going to be good vibes, and that's going to feed back into your emotions. But if there's low velocity, it might create tension with the people around you. And, oh, that's no good. And then you're going to have the negative emotions that come from it. So you see what happens? There's a lot going on with your alignment meter, and everybody has an alignment meter. It's just no one told you that. It's Bibno. Ooh, Bibno. It's basic, but not obvious, right? It's so basic that everything you experience is going to fit somewhere. Either it's going to align or contrast, or usually most things are in the middle, right? Most things don't bother us too much either way or the other. And that's what happens. That's what's going on within us. And if we can harness this, then, wow, that's good news, because we could then use it, harness it for progress from contrast toward alignment. And that's key. That is really key. Let me stop there. Any other reactions from what we're talking about? Let me hear from some new voices. How's this hitting you? Anything stick out for you? Katrina, you have a thought bubble over your head. You don't know that, but I told you. Yeah, go ahead.
I did think it was interesting, like the fact that you kind of put it in like that, like it moves from suffering to thriving, and it's never like you're constantly in one spot, and it can go from like you're thriving to completely suffering really fast. I mean, maybe just in my life, but
no, it could. That, I mean, it's interesting, and your alignment meter will always be moving, always. That's really important. Happiness isn't one thing, and it's not a fixed point. Thriving and the progress toward thriving, it's a constant thing. It's a habit. It's a progress. And what I'm trying to do is show you the mindset and a tool set too. I don't know how much time we have, but to get into this, but this is for you to navigate. This is for you to navigate those complicated questions of what should I do with my life and in this relationship, all that stuff. Where should I live? And who are, all this stuff. And we look around us, outside of us, and that can get really confusing real fast. It can mislead you, but also we need to try out the buffet of life. That's the only way we really know. And it hurts. It's like you got to make yourself vulnerable, because you're going to be taking risks. You got to try things. It's trial and error. But here's how you use the trial and error valuably. There could be a return on investment for you business majors, an ROI on this stuff, because if it doesn't work out well, it gives you information. It tells you what contrasts with me, what is not a good fit for me as an individual. And that's what you're doing now. That's why you're at college. That's what your tuition is. That's the return on your education, is for you to know what aligns with you and what contrasts with you. Because now, once you know that, you've got the strategy. You're going to go like a moth to the flame when you go toward what aligns with you, and you're going to minimize your exposure to the things that contrast with you. Fool me once, shame on me, but not even. Just shame on life for giving you the test first instead of the answers first, Fool me twice. Okay, yeah, that one is shame on me, But you're going to be smarter than that, because you now know progression theory. And progression theory says, oh, the negative stuff it's supposed to be that way. See, contrast is not your enemy. It only feels like it. I'm going to tell you how to understand contrast. Understand contrast as the teacher. Oh, my pen's not working. Oh, no, it is. Contrast equals the teacher. It's teaching you. My computer's running out of ink or something. I can't get it right. Teacher. It says teacher. I don't care what it looks like. It says teacher. Contrast is the teacher. It's saying if you don't want to suffer, you need to get rid of something, or you need to get something. You need to get rid of an attitude. You need to get rid of a relationship. You need to get rid of a mindset, or you need to get some knowledge, or get some new friends, some new allies. All right. And if you do, you won't suffer anymore. You'll graduate to struggle. And let me tell you about suffer and struggle. Suffer is when the demands placed on you exceed your ability to meet them. The downward pressure on you is greater than your ability to meet it. So you physically suffer when the physical demand is greater than your physical ability to meet it. You financially suffer when the financial demand is greater than your financial ability to meet it. You emotionally suffer when the emotional demand is greater than your resources to address it. So if you want to stop suffering, we need to get rid of something or we need to get something. And usually it's both. Usually it's a combination. We got to figure it out. We got to find a sounding board, find a coach, find a trusted confidant, find a Dr. Van Sagi. He'll talk to you about this stuff. He talks to me about this stuff. So you want to go from suffering to struggle, because struggle, that's nature's, here's my definition for struggle, nature's catalyst for growth. I'm saying it slowly, like you should write that down. Nature's catalyst for growth. So, but that's how you got through anywhere. You got to where you are now through struggle. That's the only way. You had to struggle through it. And that is nature's catalyst for growth. When you were born, you had to struggle to open your eyes and to breathe air. And now you have new struggles, how to deal with the cheating scumbag of a significant other. I'm sorry, I don't know, like, but it could be stuff like that, or just whatever. There's going to be things that come your way that's going to cause you to suffer or to struggle. But if you get things into alignment, if you respond to the teacher appropriately, if you don't get sucked into the vortex of negative emotions, if you resist from going from contrast into the vortex of negative emotions and you cut that wire, that's hard to do, by the way. I am not like, thumbing my nose at that, which is an old person's way of saying I'm not poo-pooing that, which is an old person's way of saying I'm not discounting that. Okay? It's real, it's difficult. But if you can do that, and recognize that contrast is a teacher and it's saying, yeah, okay, this ain't pleasant, but this is life. And if you want to move toward thriving, then you got to get rid of something, you got to get something new. Does that speak to anybody? Does that give you like some tools for navigation? Good. All right. So what we want to do if we want thriving is we need to identify the right factors so that we can align them. And when we align them, we'll get thriving. But how do we do that? How do we align the factors? How do we align them? Well, here's the deal. You all have resources and you need to apply those resources where? To the factors necessary for thriving. When I say resources, I do want you maybe type in chat. Let's use that a little bit. What do I mean by resources? What's an example of a resource? I'm going to hog them all. If you guys aren't going to type, oh, not Tim, time. Oh, darn it. All right, Tom, you beat me. All right. Money. Rhymes with relationships. Oh, relationships. Relationships are resources. Something that rhymes with talents. Talents. Oh, family, friends. Excellent. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Knowledge. You can grow your knowledge about something. You can these are all different resources. Good. Very good. All right, we'll end that. That's the end of the chat portion. You guys need to get better at it. But it was good. Like we got like a lot of, these are resources that you have at your disposal, and your job is to apply those resources to the factors necessary for your thriving. If your time is going to something that has nothing to do with your thriving, like if you're doing something with your time that has nothing to do with your thriving, maybe you reallocate it. And that might be a way to make progress. If you're spending money on stuff that, may not get you to thriving. And that's, by the way, what marketers are trying to do all the time. They're trying to convince you, do this, it'll make you thrive. They lie to you. They do. They're lying to you. And they've hired a lot of psychologists, teams. There's conferences called What Teens Want. It's marketers. It's not for teens. It's all marketers who get together sharing their research on how to get young people to feel insecure enough to spend money on their things. That's what's happening. Your environment is often a source for your lack of thriving, for your struggle and suffer. You see, and that's what I mean by fine tuning your environment. See, whatever's in your upstream is coming down to you. Whatever you're dealing with right now came from your upstream. Does this make sense? This is Bibno. This is basic, but it's not obvious. If you have a person in your life that is highly contrasting to you, then what's going to happen when that person's in your upstream? You're going to get contrast in the downstream. If you have a job or a boss that you hate, what's going to happen every day at work? Well, you're going to experience the negative emotions. That's all right. That happens. There's, we will have that happen. But over time and using our resources, that's why I'm talking about resources, you can shape what's in your upstream and get it to align with you better. Nobody tells us this stuff. I had to figure all this out on my own, and I'm not that smart. So this was very difficult. And I'm going to put it down on there's one last, okay, yes, I basically got it all in one piece. I didn't cover the engage thing as much as I want to, so let me bring that up again. So what you do with your resources is you engage them. I know when we use the word engagement, we usually mean like something like you have a good attitude, you're engaged, you're involved, you're paying attention.
And when we talked about engagement in Martin Seligman's PERMA model, he equated engagement and flow. And I know we've talked a lot about flow and what that means.
Good. So what I'm going to say is different, but it doesn't undermine any of that. In fact, it fits very well with it. I'm going back to the original etymology for what the word engagement means. All right, that's kind of how I do, because words are codes from the past. That's what they're not just like dorky things like I'm being, because I can't control my controls here. Words are codes coming to us from the past, and they're saying, yo, check this out. This was important one time before Instagram, and we got canceled with ideas and stuff. All right. Gauge is the root word of engagement. And if you go here, it means to pledge or to spend. Where is it? Do I have it in this one, or is it somewhere else? Maybe it's on a different one. I can't see. So to wage, wed, but what it means is to pledge. It's on another slide. So the etymology of gauge is like when you say I'm going to engage, we're getting engaged, we're going to get engaged, get married. I'm pledging all my resources. I'm saying all my property is your property. All my health, all I have is yours. We're getting engaged. And when I ask you to be engaged, I'm asking you to give me your attention. But maybe I'm trying to engage you as a customer, which means I want your money. In other words, what we gauge, what we spend or pledge are resources. Where do you pledge or spend your resources? And how much in control of you are you? In other words, how much of where you're spending your resources are because you inwardly, genuinely want to spend them there? And how much of it is because you've been socially conditioned to do it? Let me show you this. Sometimes people here. Let me just show you this. I'll ask you what it is. What is this? When I show you this, there's a little bit of information on there. What does this look like? Have you seen this? This is the human life. This is every year up to like 100 years, and this is every week up to 52 weeks. And doesn't this look surprising that you could get off like 50? This is 52 dots. If I counted them up, it'd be 52 dots. So this week, if we zoomed in on it, let's say if you're like 21 or 22 years old, and let's say you just had a birthday, like you're 21 this week, this little plate down here, that's the whole week. That's your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. That's your whole week. All there. And when the week's over, that's spent. And so for 52 weeks, you do that. You got 52 plates. Let's say your week is a little plate. and what's on your plate is in your week, and you've wasted all the stuff that's on your plate. You spend all your time on video games like I've done in the past, and you've used up one of your plates for the year. But what I want to show you is that by the time a 16-year-old is my age, I'm 52. So by the time a 16-year-old is 52, they will have spent 4 solid lines. I don't know how straight I can be. Ooh, I'm doing better than I ever really do. 4 of these. Let's see, can I come back the other way and be just as straight? Oh my gosh, I'm really doing awesome. All right, that's how much time they spend on a device from the time they're 16 to the time they're my age. Not just daytime, 24/7. I mean, that's every full amount of this circle and times that. That's all spent on a device. What do you think of that? Where do your resources go? Where's your money going? I can't tell you how much money I've wasted on stupid clothes. Some clothes are good. I like this shirt. I'm like, this is good. Some articles of clothing you buy once and you know, like how many times will you wear the sunglasses? And then if you wear them every day, then maybe you spend a little bit more on them. How often will you wear this rain jacket? Maybe once in a rainy day, if that, right? So you think about utility, think about where your resources go, think where your time goes. This is how you make progress toward thriving. This is how you engage. You spend your resources. Don't let other people tell you to do it. They're always going to tell you to do it. I also want to say something else about engagement. Most conflict is about engagement. If you think about a conflict you're having right now, in some sense, it's you're not spending the resources in the way I think you should spend them. You're not paying enough attention to this thing, or you're spending too much with that person, or this or that. Does that make sense? Did that hit the mark for anybody? I never did that. That was like a little social experiment. Did you think of a conflict you were having and go, wow, yeah, it really is about, at some level, it really is about, we're arguing over how to spend resources. We don't agree on how much of a priority or how much something is. Anybody want to confirm me on that, or no, you want to leave me hanging? All right, fine. But it's kind of true, yeah. So engagement really matters. So now let me bring it all together. I have it like in a worksheet to say, all right, if you want to thrive, here's how to apply progression theory. First thing we have to do is we have to pick a focus. If we don't have a focus, everything else is off. I want to pick a focus and I want to peg it to the board. I want to nail it. I want to make it immovable. You know, like those little compasses with the pencil on one end and you make circles, you know what I'm talking about? There's that pointy jabby end you stick in the paper or in your classmate's hand, which somebody did to me once when I was in 3rd grade. That pointy end is what you want to stick. That's your purpose. This box number 1 is your purpose. And purpose is first, what is my focus? I can't tell you a purpose until I know a focus. Here's the focus. Here, this glass. What is the purpose of the glass? Why does this glass matter? It holds water. It provides beverages. It allows me to drink it, right? Here, this is a book. It's my book on StrengthsFinder. This is the focus. Why does it matter? Okay, that's purpose. Purpose is focus plus why does it matter? It's very important. People don't know how to do this. You walk into a meeting and you're like, why are we having this meeting? Because no one picked a focus. That's why. So be a person that knows how to identify the right focus. There's a talent no one ever tells you to learn, but if you know how to do it, people are going to want you around. They will. They don't know it yet. What is our focus and why does it matter? When we focus plus why it matters equals purpose. From purpose, this is 1. From purpose, we now can go over here to outcomes. And when we have a focus, we can come to outcomes. Because all I have to do is ask you, for your focus, what does thriving look like? What does it look like for it to grow, succeed, be healthy? Or one of my favorite ways to say it is meaningful progress. What would meaningful, I'm using my mouse to do this, I'm not gonna do it, it's painful. What would meaningful progress look like? For what? for my focus. If you don't have a focus, you don't have outcomes. You don't have thriving. So your focus could be something very small. It could be, what is my focus? What are the outcomes I want for this homework assignment I have to do? Like Dr. Van Sage asks us to provide articles that we come across on this topic of happiness. Wow, it would be really great if I wrote a few sentences on, like what are the takeaways from that? For this assignment, thriving would look like I got value from it. I was able to get two pieces of insight or wisdom I could use from it. That's how you decide. Or your focus could be something really big. It could be like my life. What would thriving look like for my life? That's a little big. So I might say, what would thriving look like for the next semester or the next year? You do back up and do kind of look and develop, have that vision for what a thriving life is. Absolutely. Like that's what we're doing here. It all fits within that. That's why I wanted to show you this